name's Charlie Bell, and I've been into trains on and off all my life. I got started, I guess, when I was 3 years old, when my father bought a set of trains for himself to play with at Christmas and told my mom that they were from me. And in the early 90s, I got interested in this. It's #1 gauge. Some people call it G gauge because you put it outside in your garden. So I built my first garden railroad in Maryland in 1993. And then in 2007, I had time to start building this. And I've been working on my railroad for 2.5 years. I guess it's interesting to me because trains usually run in beautiful locations. You see pictures of trains, they're beside rivers, they're in mountains. When I was a little boy, steam was still in, and the steam engines really impressed me. My parents liked trains. They used to take me to the train station and we'd watch the trains go by. They were push trains made out of wood. Then with the advent of electricity, you could put small electric motors in them and trains would actually run around the track. Trains developed a lot in the early 1900s. Lionel came on the scene and was the big manufacturer of trains. Probably before the First World War, and certainly big time between the First World War and Second World War. I guess the first steam engines came out probably around 1830. Baltimore and Ohio ran the first steam railroad in the United States. That was the railroad I modeled. And then diesels started to come out in the late 30s and early 40s. There are some people that run their railroads on live steam rather than electricity. You have a water tank in the engine. For fuel, you have butane. They're expensive. They won't run all day and they won't pull 30 or 40 cars. But steam is for the real hobbyist. Then there's another kind of power called battery power. The only problem with battery power is you might run for an hour and pull 5 or 6 cars. I like to put 2, 3, 4 diesels out on my track and maybe 40 cars and just let them run all afternoon. You can buy trains that you can ride on. That's big, and they're horribly expensive, and you need an acre or two to make a layout like that. This is the practical gauge, #1 gauge or G gauge. It's so big that you really should build your layout outside. I have 1,100 feet of track on my layout, and I think the measurements of my layout are 70 feet by 90 feet. And you need wide radius curves, like 20-foot diameter, which means if you make a circle, it's 20 feet across. Going down to smaller gauges, Lionel is probably the next smallest gauge, then HO, and maybe SS, you don't see much of that. HO gauge is the most popular because you can build a good HO set on a 4x8 piece of plywood, or at least 2 of them. Then the next smallest gauge is N gauge. You can build quite a layout on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Yeah, track plans are more necessary for smaller scale and for people just getting into the hobby, because they they get the curve. Well, a lot of people think in terms of straight track, but I found when I build a railroad that I'll use more curved track than I will straight track. You can buy track plans for all gauges, but when you work outside, track plans don't often work because you have hills and slopes and water features, and I just sort of get a general idea when I'm laying track of what I want to do and put the track down and just go with it. If I need to move some dirt, I'll move some dirt, and later on I'll use it where I want fill. When you have a railroad, especially an outdoor railroad, you're always going to have a problem with it. Track gets dirty, so you have to clean your track. Cleaning track takes a whole lot of time. There's a lot of different ways to clean track. Dirty track is your biggest problem. Your second biggest problem is dirty wheels on your engine, because you've got to have clean track and clean wheels to get a good electrical contact. Other problems you have loose rail jointers. You can have loose wires that are feeds to your track. You might have a burnt wire on your power pack because you've drawn too many amps. With an outdoor layout, you get leaves and twigs and gravel, and when it rains hard, the ballast splashes up on the track. And sometimes you have problems with animals and snakes. I have a lot of snakes around here. In Maryland, I had a long tunnel, and in the spring, first time I ran an engine in one end of the tunnel, and a duck came out of the other end of the tunnel in front of it. Before I put any cars behind an engine, I always run the engine around the track once to see if it makes it. Because 50% of the time, your engine won't run around the track until you do something. You usually do 4 hours of maintenance for every hour of running trains. There are all kinds of train cars. The ones that you're probably most familiar with are box cars. These particular models are representing 50-foot cars. Then we have tank cars that haul chemicals, gasoline, oil. Up here we have a work train, flat cars, one carrying rail. This is our wrecking car or crane. Up at the top we have container cars. These cars here can only carry one container, but the cars up at the top can carry 2 containers, and this is what a container looks like. And if that shelf wasn't up there, I could put this container on top, and it's called a double stack. Down here we have grain cars. You can gravity feed the cars through the roof, and the bottoms open up, and they unload by coming out the bays in the bottom. This car is called a heavyweight. Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, probably came out in the 50s. This particular car is a dining car, and you can look in the windows and you can see the lamps on the tables inside the car. This is a later model passenger car. It looks pretty running at night because it reflects the light. This is a dome car. You pay extra money to sit up in the dome. This engine is a model of something that was built about 1890, 1895. And you can see the wheel configurations are different. It's got 2 axles, 4 wheels up front, and 2 axles, 4 wheels in the back. This is another steam engine. It's called a Pacific. Probably was manufactured maybe 1910, something like that. It's a very popular engine. It has a wheel configuration that's called a 4-6-2. It has very tall drive wheels, which makes this engine very, very fast. This engine is called a mallet, and they were built during the First World War in 1915, 16, 17, and it was built to haul freight. and it's called a 2882, meaning 2 pony wheels up in the front, 8 drive wheels here, 8 drive wheels here, and 2 ponies in the back. This engine has sound, and it'll also blow smoke, and it lights up. It's always an adventure running your trains outside.